Hello and welcome once again. Another week is in the books, man. We are live once again on our YouTube channel. Once again, this is under construction. I guess I'm your de facto host, the Angry Black Fan. Fellas, what's going on?
Nothing much,
Up,
man.
what's up, brothers?
What's going on, Jamal?
Hey, y'all see this lineup though? Did y'all catch y'all catch y'all catch the beer getting cut? Did y'all catch that? Anybody?
Oh Lord, you can have that, man. I can wait. I can wait another month or so.
I can't, man. Hey, man, I was looking like Michael Bennett out here, man. Kaza, how's your week, man?
I don't even know what day it is, or I don't. I just survive day to day. So that's what
Rodney, what's rolling life been like this week, brother?
Um, we went to South Carolina and saw some family we ain't see in like 3 months.
All right.
Other than that, it's been pretty cool, man. Just been in the house, man. Just trying to get projects done and trying to knock out the school thing. And did I ever tell you guys how much I hate group projects?
What are you trying to tell us, man?
No, I just don't like. I don't like group projects, man. I'm just like I like things done a certain way.
Right?
If things ain't gonna go right, they're not gonna go right on my own accord.
I
There
can
you
dig
go.
it.
You go.
Hey, but speaking of staying at home, so we're all going to stay at home tonight. What the hell are we going to watch? Because that was it, y'all. Last week was it. That was it. The Last Dance.
I mean, I guess we watch reruns of old NBA games at this point. I don't know, man. Like I'm about to cancel Netflix. Ain't nothing on there anymore. I've watched everything, man.
All right, y'all. So let's get into this. Let's get into the recap of the last episode of The Last Dance, man. The Last Dance covered, the grueling Indiana Pacers series. Covered the now controversial Pizzagate or the flu game or the hangover game or whatever you want, however you want to conspiracize it. It was covered in the last episode. Kaz, I want to start off with you, man. Now, the first question I want to ask you, man, why is it now, we're talking what, 20 years later, why is it now so controversial, the whole Pizzagate, the whole flu game, whatever you want to call it? Why is this being drummed up again, man?
I've never understood people's fascination with the thought that he might not have the flu, that he might not have had the flu. That's always been a thing for 20 something years.
Right.
So my thing has always been, so what? Obviously he was ill. Obviously he wasn't feeling well. And
Right.
I feel like, well, if it was from a hangover, then that kind of anything to put any kind of negative trait towards Michael Jordan to make him more human. Oh, he was obviously hungover. To me, if he was hungover,
Makes it even more impressive.
That's
Man,
he really is the GOAT. You can't debate it at that.
Hey, listen, coming from somebody who's been hungover, I don't even want to play NBA 2K, let alone play a real basketball game when I'm hungover.
Also, is I don't buy the hangover story because Michael Jordan is 6'6", 215-pound professional athlete. He could, for the amount of alcohol that he would have had to have drank to be hungover,
the next full day.
Yeah, it would have been alcohol poisoning. He would have been dead. And also, no one else came out and been like, someone would have come out and been like,
I saw him out.
Yeah, Mike was putting it back. But the pizza story actually is it's really old. I don't know why everyone is like shocked.
Yeah, I'm
Bill.
Weird.
That like 10 years ago, his
Me and Rodney talked about that before the show. Yeah.
They said the whole story. Hey, we ordered Mike a pizza. It came and we thought it might have been food poisoning or whatever. So I like that Mike came out and was like, oh yeah, it was some bad pizza. And then everyone's trying to poke holes in that story. Why didn't Mike sue the pizza place for food poisoning, and how they know it was Michael Jordan, and all these. It's like a sub conspiracy to the conspiracy.
Yeah, right.
The man had food poisoning before a game, and
can we not? Let's just leave it at that, right?
Yeah. So, it's not like he had cramps and had to be carried off the court.
Or he shit on himself.
Rodney, what you got, man?
Man, it's that whole story is funny, man. Like 5 guys delivering a pizza to your room. I'm not eating that pizza. I'm not eating that pizza. And basically, like that whole, I don't believe the whole drinking hangover story. Like, where the hell you hanging out in Salt Lake City at 3-4 o'clock at night getting drunk?
I'm glad you said that. It is important to note, and I don't know how old this is. I truly don't know how old this is. It is important to note for those who conspiracize drinking and all this other stuff that Utah is known for having the most strict liquor laws in America. They pretty much shut down at like 11 o'clock out there. Now, granted, I don't know if that law was intact in 1997, 8, whatever, but it's important to know that. But Rodney, go ahead, sir.
And then like it blows my mind. People like, oh wow, I never knew that wasn't the flu. I'm like,
come on,
you
now.
never heard a story about anybody else getting sick afterwards. Like usually when you have the flu and you're around people, you give other people the flu. So I never heard a story about him passing on or anything like that. And
also,
he was trying to play the next game.
Forget that the flu was a media narrative.
Right.
Yeah.
The Bulls never said that it was the flu or anything. Before the game, they said Michael Jordan had flu-like
symptoms, right?
Vomiting.
Yeah, corona shit.
Right.
So I think that the media just ran with it. And what are the Bulls going to come out? I mean, they didn't know what it was either at the time.
Right. And I don't think they cared after they won. So you know what I mean?
Didn't matter.
Right. And I truly think it was specifically an ESPN thing because we know how the 4-letter network likes to sensationalize every single story about popular athletes. So I specifically think it was ESPN saying, let's just call it the flu game. It sounds good. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I don't think the Bulls ever cared enough to come out and say, well, no, it wasn't. I really don't. I don't think 2 years later somebody said, well, actually, guys, hey, it was food poisoning. Nobody cared enough. And it's funny how now in 2020, this is such a doggone conspiracy. I just wanted to throw that out there. That's just stupid in my opinion. But yeah.
The 3-6 Mafia, the 3-6 Mafia is throwing shade at Mike at this point. Yeah, the 3-6 Mafia. Yeah, you know LeBron.
Mafia, LeBron 3-6.
Oh, got you. Okay, I'm sorry. I got you. Look, man. We could talk about them all show, but we don't have that much time, man. So we're gonna leave them alone today, maybe next week. But what I am glad the series touched on last week was that Indiana series, man, because it's the one time in the prime legacy of the Bulls and Michael that they were really on the brink of elimination. They were really on the brink of that dynasty being broken up by a team that was on that had them on the ropes, man. And I remember watching that series, and I remember thinking to myself, like, man, this really might be it. You know what I mean? And I'm glad they kind of, and I'm glad they kind of documented just how tough and how grueling that series was, man. What are y'all thoughts on that?
To me, that year, Indiana was a better team. Like, they were a much deeper team and a better team. It just shows you how great MJ was that he pulled his team through. And actually, kudos to those fans in Indiana, man. They were a rabid fan base full of Karens and Kens. Like, they've always been a great fan base in the NBA, man. To me, I'm gonna jump ahead. To me, honestly, if the Bulls would have came back in 98, 99, they wouldn't have won a championship to me, man.
Because of
man. Huh?
Because of Indiana specifically?
No, man. I'm telling you, man, like Scotty was starting to break down at that point. Dennis Rodman never really played again. MJ, if you remember the offseason, he got hurt. He hurt his finger.
Yeah.
It was too many teams in the East starting to kind of rise. Like Miami was still good. The Knicks were a good team still with Latrell Sprewell and Allen Houston. And they honestly wouldn't have beaten the Spurs to me. Tim Duncan and David Robinson were a different problem. The Bulls didn't have that depth up front to actually compete with them.
All right. I hear you. Kaiser, what are your thoughts on that?
So, first of all, the Indiana series, I've always liked those 90s Pacers teams.
Yeah.
I always hated the Knicks, mainly because I like Michael Jordan, but I always rooted for the Pacers in those Knicks-Pacers playoffs.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hey, Kaiser, let me cut you off real quick. Was it only just me, but there were like some players I hated, but I also liked watching. Like Reggie Miller was one of those dudes. Like I couldn't stand the dude, but
my mom used to say he looked like a demon. I used to like Reggie Miller because when I was a kid playing basketball, I was just a scrawny little thing out there, and so I wanted to shoot because Reggie Miller, he was like a dude out there. He could shoot. Same with Dale Curry. I always like players that could shoot that have like these great physical gifts. So that Indiana team, if you look at that roster on paper, it's like, wow, that was a
deep team, man.
Roster.
That was a deep team.
It's just, and Reggie Miller said it on the documentary, that championship pedigree, the difference in the championship experience. The Bulls knew what it was going to take to win Game 7. Michael Jordan knew that he was going to die on the court before that he would lose Game 7 to the Pacers. To the second point about whether or not they would have won another championship, I don't know. I don't see it, man.
I don't either
on this. I think knowing now what it took to win in '98, I mean, it took a lot.
Yeah.
And I think the Bulls were kind of fortunate. That Jazz team, although I think if the Jazz had played anyone else in the East, they would have won the chip that year. But they weren't as good as they were the previous year. Although they had a better record. They were the number 1 seed. But the previous year, that Jazz team was a lot better. And so let's say the Bulls make it back to the finals, like Rodney said, they would have gone up against the Spurs with David Robinson and Tim Duncan.
A very young, spry San Antonio Spurs.
I just don't. And I honestly, I think they might have lost to that Knicks team that made the finals.
Yeah,
the Knicks would have taken their play, just like how Chicago had to get past Detroit to get to the finals. I think the Knicks might have, would have gotten past Chicago. But like Michael Jordan said, at least give us the opportunity to try. They didn't even get to defend their title on the court because of the politics of basketball, which is, really unfortunate. So
right. Yeah, I got a hot take. If the Bulls don't win that Game 6 on Jordan's push off on Russell, they would have lost Game 7 to me. I honestly believe that. I believe that, man.
Okay, first of all, it wasn't a push off. I mean, if that's a push off, then the refs got to blow the whistle every time you put the offensive player.
It's Michael Jordan. You're not gonna blow the whistle on Michael Jordan.
Well, that's true. But think about in today's NBA, where it's a push off every play, and the refs don't even call it. I don't see them calling that in 1998. If that was a push off, then Reggie Miller pushed off in game.
Come on, man.
Yeah. So and they didn't call that. I just feel like that was the fact that Michael Jordan even touched Byron Russell was a non-issue. But I don't think the only thing is if they got a Game 7, they would have been playing in Utah. But we forget that the Bulls had beaten the Jazz by 41 a game earlier.
50 something, yeah, right.
Yeah, I mean. They were just a better team. The Jazz were a lot older. Look at John Stockton's numbers. John Stockton is one of the most underrated NBA players ever. All time.
Totally agree.
Ever. And steals. But that was a down year and a down series for him. Look at his numbers the difference between 98 and 97.
He was just getting out of his prime. He was on a decline toward the end of his career. Yeah.
So I'm not sure if it had gone to Game 7, but it didn't go to Game 7. So
because Michael doesn't let the series go to Game 7, so that it's a moot point. Honestly, I will say this, man.
So let me. You can go ahead, Jamal.
Let me get this one point out, man. As far as the Bulls and possibly winning or not winning the next year, I think they left right on time, man. Because just for reasons y'all already stated, man. Look how much it took in 97, 98, man. I think they gave every ounce they had. Scottie Pippen was beat up. He had a bad back. Like Rodney said, I think Scottie was just getting out of his prime. Michael was past his prime, now obviously still pretty good, obviously, but we're talking about a 35-year-old Michael Jordan who would have been 36 going into that next season. You get what I'm saying? Nobody knows what Dennis Rodman was doing next season, who's actually older than Michael Jordan. And then you got other aging veterans in the Chicago Bulls. There was no telling how Jerry Krause would have replaced those older veterans. So there are too many question marks, man. And like I said, I think the Bulls left right on time.
There was a rumor that Jerry Krause was looking at trying to acquire Tracy McGrady,
right,
to replace Scottie Pippen. And I'll tell you this: if that had happened, let's say Michael Jordan comes back and Scottie Pippen leaves, because I don't think he would have stayed around, and somehow they pull off a deal to get T-Mac,
right,
young Tracy McGrady, and Michael Jordan,
right,
then we might
things get interesting.
Yeah, then we might be having a different conversation about whether the Bulls win another chip or not. People forget how good Tracy McGrady was because the era that he played in sucked. That early 2000s NBA was.
It was the worst time in the NBA, man. It was bad NBA. Yeah.
But you think about all the great players: Tracy McGrady, Allen Iverson, early Kobe Bryant, Shaq was in his prime. There were some really good players in that time. That Steve Francis, man, I used to love watching Steve Francis play. We saw, we saw the ascension of Vince Carter. So I think that the Tracy McGrady deal might have made things interesting.
But let me talk to that point real quick, Kaza, because it's funny you mentioned Tracy McGrady, and it's funny you mentioned Vince Carter and players of that ilk. And let me tell you where I'm going with this. Tracy McGrady would have been an interesting cog with the Bulls, and here's why. We don't question the talent at all. We don't question Tracy McGrady's talent one bit. The dude was, I'm talking about an insane athlete and an insane scorer. But here's my question mark about him, guys like Vince Carter, and a little bit of Allen Iverson. Those guys, to me, with all the talent they had, did they have that pedigree of winning anything? You get what I'm saying? Allen Iverson was in a situation. We had Larry Brown, who to me is a very underrated coach. We know his cycle, but look what he did. Look at that Philadelphia team and what he did to get them to that championship, to the NBA Finals. But back to what I'm saying. Would Tracy McGrady and Michael Jordan, would they have meshed well together? You get what I'm saying? I could see Michael Jordan cussing Tracy McGrady out every week and somehow that not working. It's a question we'll never know.
It just depends on the NBA back in Jordan's time was built on this narrative of every team has an alpha dog.
Right.
I mean, who was the alpha dog on the Lakers? Everyone loved Magic Johnson. He was not Michael Jordan. Let's get that straight. But he was the alpha dog in the
Lakers. He was right.
Well,
right.
After Kareem, actually, I don't think Kareem was the alpha dog on that Lakers team. When Magic Johnson came in as a rookie and played for Hurt Kareem and won the championship, that was his team.
That meant something. Meant something, man. Yeah. That's big time. Yeah.
The Boston Celtics, and especially Larry Bird just seems like that nice, like the nice dude coach, but stories about Larry Bird, he was ruthless as hell. He was savage. He was the alpha dog. So same with Isaiah Thomas, same with Michael Jordan. Joe Dumars was the nice guy on the Pistons. Isaiah Thomas was not like, he tried to play like he was a nice guy, but he was the alpha dog.
Definitely wasn't, right.
Yeah, part of the problem with that, the early 2000s NBA is that you didn't have that. A guy like Tracy McGrady might have been the alpha dog on his team, but he didn't have anybody else on his team to really challenge him.
Right.
For the title. I mean, he got to play with his cousin, Vince Carter. Them two dudes, who's going to tell them, hey, man, y'all need to stop throwing alley-oops off the backboard?
Listen, who didn't want to play with each other? The reason why
crazy.
Why?
Nowadays, dudes would be like dying to play with each other. But I agree with you there, Jamal. I don't know if and maybe that's what we saw when Michael Jordan came out of retirement to go play for the Wizards. That part of Michael Jordan's career is remembered oddly by people. People forget the reason he came out of retirement because the Wizards were bad. Okay, they were a bad team. And did some of that have to do with Michael Jordan's decisions as an executive? Maybe. But they were a bad team. He comes out of retirement. He almost gets them to the playoffs. They were in a 7th seed position, and then Michael Jordan blew his knee out. So I think, part of the reason why that team wasn't better is because Jerry Stackhouse came out later and said, he hated playing with Michael Jordan. And that's probably why.
That's a great example. And listen, before, I saw that headline about Jerry Stackhouse not wanting to play with Michael and so forth. I swear to God, y'all, before I even clicked on the headline, I said to myself, translation, I couldn't get as many shots as I wanted to with Michael Jordan being there. I said that right before I clicked the headline. Sure enough, I clicked the headline and something to the effect of, I realized I wasn't the guy on offense when Michael was there. So to me, man, that speaks to Jerry Stackhouse' career and a lot of guys like him. You get what I'm saying? Like guys who had all the talent, like I said, but just did not have that championship pedigree for whatever reason. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sometimes.
So guys, I got a question.
Go ahead, Roddy.
I got a question. So episode 9 and 10, what kind of stood out to you the most? Like what was a standout moment in these episodes?
I'll tell you something, man. Because we all say this a lot because we were in it and we watched it and we know everything, and not a lot surprised me. I didn't learn a lot of new things, but the Steve Kerr piece was interesting.
I was going to say the same thing.
Because I was oblivious to that whole thing. I never knew the situation with his father. I didn't know his father was this activist. I didn't know his father was murdered. And the one criticism I have was I don't think that the documentary did well in linking Steve Kerr's relationship to Michael Jordan's situation. Like both fathers murdered, you get what I'm saying? Yeah. Your teammates. I'm almost positive that kind of had to. I mean, they had to have some kind of what's the word I'm looking for? They had to link them somehow. They had to find some common ground with that. And I don't think the documentary.
I think the documentary wanted to go in that direction, but they even asked Steve Kerr.
Probably MJ blocked it. Probably.
Yeah, they asked Steve Kerr, "Did you ever talk to Michael about your fathers?" And he says, "No, it was just too painful." Mm-hmm. Yeah, you two players who had history on the team, and you know what? Looking back, that might have been why Steve Kerr, Michael Jordan. That might have been why Steve Kerr was stood up to Michael Jordan. Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah,
I think the documentary was trying to go there, but it just didn't. But I had a different outlook in respect. I've always respected Steve Kerr. I mean, look at what he's done in as far as being associated with the NBA. I mean, the dude's got a super trophy case, all kinds of jewelry. Real good guy.
Spurs, Warriors.
Yeah, he is a player's coach. So he came out looking crystal on this. And I have a newfound respect for Phil Jackson.
Yeah.
I was a Phil Jackson detractor. I always felt like,
really?
Yeah, because how lucky do you gotta be to essentially coach 4 of the 10 greatest players of all time?
Yeah, that's true. That's pretty. Yeah.
And when you look at how he got the job, which is something I always knew, Doug Collins was not a bad coach at all. He got the Bucks to the Eastern Conference Final, and I have no doubt that he might have won a championship with them when they got over the hump the next year. But all of that Jerry Krause-ness came in, and Phil Jackson.
Hey, Look, look. We can mention Jerry Krause, but that's a pretty boss move, man. That's a pretty ballsy boss move.
It is. So,
hey, man, look. He gets a lot of credit. Like everybody was shitting on him, but that dude made the right decisions at the right time.
But if you look at what he did with the Lakers, although the Lakers weren't as good before Phil Jackson got there, he was able to get those guys to play together and win. And now I see that now with the documentary. He was able to take a guy, Dennis Rodman, Scottie Pippen, who was a bit of a malcontent, as we saw, but just wasn't vocal about it. Dennis Rodman, who was a malcontent. Michael Jordan, who was punching people in practice. He was able to take all of that and win 6 championships, and then go to the Lakers and take a very talented team who couldn't win and win 3 more championships in a row, and then win another one years down the road. I mean, and then the whole burning the ceremony at the end, Michael Jordan reads the poem. I'm like, what the hell? Like, that was something I never heard.
Nah, that's new to me too, man.
Michael Jordan read this poem, and it was like really somber, and it touched me. It's like, hold up, what?
Wait, Michael read a poem, really? Hey, man, but one thing that is always understated when it comes to coaching in the NBA is managing egos. And Phil Jackson had good Lord, man. You got the 3 biggest egos you could imagine with Michael, Shaq, Kobe. You know what I'm saying? And to manage that is very understated, man. It is not an easy job at a professional level.
I don't think Phil Jackson was as good at taking average talent and making them competitive. If you look at the Lakers after Shaq left, they had a sharp decline until they got Paul Gasol. And then they won another championship.
Yeah.
And then he never coached except for the 2 years Michael was gone, or the year and a half, in which the first season Michael left, they did make the ECF. But then the next season, they were in danger of missing the playoffs until Michael Jordan came back in number 45. I don't think it's like you take somebody like Larry Brown, who I thought was better at taking average talent.
Absolutely.
Like the Charlotte Bobcats. Or winning a championship with the Detroit. Did they have any superstars on that team? Like, no, not really.
I mean, you probably got 2 Hall of Famers. 2 Hall of Famers.
Hall of Famers, but nothing like what Phil Jackson had. So, but having said that, I really like the way what I was able to learn about Phil Jackson. Good stuff.
Yeah, no doubt. Rodney, what you got?
One thing that stood out to me, man, was Dennis Rodman, man. That dude was an animal, like off the court, man. Like the dude was like a complete icon. Like you skip practice because you whooped the Utah Jazz's ass, and you wrestle with Hulk Hogan in the NWO, and then come back the next game and kick ass
and grab 18 rebounds next game,
man.
And then you get to go home and sleep with Carmen Electra.
What a charm life! What more could a man ask for?
Which is crazy.
Hey, man, look. Toni Braxton was on that list too, dog.
Yeah,
she dated Dennis Rodman.
Although that
Madonna,
but as much as I love Madonna, but I mean, he still and the thing, just what a decade prior, he was sitting in a truck outside of the arena with a gun to his head,
allegedly over a woman.
Yeah. And then now it's the Phil Jackson effect. Phil Jackson said, "You know what? Be yourself. Be Dennis Rodman," and he was Dennis Rodman.
And listen, man. And here's an added layer to that, man, because I really believe in a lot of ways basketball saved Dennis Rodman's life, because it is well documented that Dennis Rodman had battled some issues, man. Battled suicidal thoughts, obviously depression, the whole 9, man. And he's spoken before on how the Bulls felt like family and how important it was to be leaned on by Michael Jordan. How important it was for MJ to say, "Hey, man, we need you." You know what I mean? All that meant something to Dennis Rodman, man. And when Phil Jackson kind of showed that he understood what makes Dennis Rodman tick and what doesn't. It worked out for the better, man. Which is why Dennis Rodman didn't last a lick in San Antonio. It was this complete opposite.
Yeah.
It just didn't feel like the right fit with Dennis Rodman, and it's just funny how it worked out with the Bulls.
I mean, another thing that stood out to me, man. In 1998, well, it's actually two things. In 1998, when the Jazz lost, Karl Malone, like a stand-up guy, went to congratulate the Bulls on their team bus.
Yes, sir.
And then finally in the hotel, look, man, they went back to a hotel in Salt Lake City and celebrated in the lobby. You know how fucking whack that is?
Well, look where they're
like that's what I'm saying. Like, could you guys imagine, like, in 1998, it's like, okay, we're gonna go to sleeping party the next day in Chicago. Like, man, we hopping to PJ, we going to Vegas tonight.
Like,
it's on and popping. Like, it's just weird.
Still daylight out. Remember, Mike said, I'm gonna have to go hit the golf course. Yeah. Also, Patrick Ewing did the same thing after, which is odd considering the vitriol between the Bulls and the Knicks. But he came on the bus, good series guys. The way Michael Jordan and Larry Bird dapped each other up.
Yeah.
And after that game 7, and Larry Bird's like, "Hey, bitch, F you," it was odd to see that type of camaraderie between the players in the 90s. I don't think you see that nowadays.
No.
I don't see it. Imagine someone going up to Kevin Durant and saying that.
Oh my! And look, it'll be all over Twitter and Instagram and. It'll be on,
so soft.
It'll be on some trashy side like Baller Alert. Like it'll just it's just not it's just not the same, man. Look, man. Let me get in my old grumpy man mode real quick, man. But I mean, it just goes to show you, man. It was such a gentleman's game, man. Like that. The whole I'll say, I don't know, class of '84 like that whole.
Yeah,
generation. It was just different, man. They understood it, dude. Dudes
had so much respect for each other,
and yet they hated each other on the court.
Michael Jordan even said it about Isaiah Thomas. I respect this game. He's the second best point guard ever. That's why Michael Jordan went over and shook their hands for 3 straight years, and they knocked him out of the playoffs. And that's why everyone shit on the Pistons about not shaking their hands. There was this respect code between all those guys. And the Pistons broke it. So
right. All right, I got a question, fellas. So
what's up?
Everybody's salty for some. Everybody's just mad. Everybody's mad. So let me ask y'all, fellas, why the hell is Scottie Pippen so salty? Before y'all go into your thing, let me explain why I asked that. There was nothing in that documentary that I saw that was unfounded or untrue. Everything that was said about Scottie Pippen, positive and negative, was true. And at the end of the day, Michael Jordan said it himself. It came out of his own mouth. You cannot mention Michael Jordan without mentioning Scottie Pippen. He is my best teammate of all time. So why is Scottie salty, y'all? Who want to take that one first?
So I have a theory. Ever since Future made that song, I just in some Gucci flip flop. Like Scottie's been salty ever since, man. Like I remember a few years ago, Scottie was saying like LeBron was the best player ever, and then
2 weeks later he'll say MJ.
like honestly, man, Scottie, he's just gonna be Scottie, man. Like
yeah.
I understand Horace. I understand Horace Grant being more upset than Scottie, but Scottie,
I don't
man,
think
look,
even them cats deserve to have any beef. First of all, like Jamal.
Look, man, look.
Yeah,
look. If I'm Horace and you call me a snitch and I did not snitch, we're gonna have some problems.
Let's get the horse later. Let's get the horse later.
I'll touch on that in a minute. I want to talk about Scottie real quick. Like Jamal said, everything the documentary said was true. Michael wasn't the only teammate that had something to say about some of the things Scottie Pippen did. he quit. He quit on his team. He quit
There's no way around that. Yeah.
When they needed him, and Tony Kukoc bailed them out. You can never say that about Michael Jordan. You can say all kinds of stuff about what kind of teammate or player Michael Jordan was, but you can never say that he quit on his team. So Scottie has to carry that. And for him to say, I'd do it again. Oh, man. Come on, bro. Come on, bro.
Right. Really? Right.
And so but having said that, I don't think the documentary portrayed him in any kind of negative light. I felt like the documentary went out of its way to attach Scottie Pippen to the legacy of that Bulls team and Michael Jordan. So I think Scottie has always been a little salty because Michael Jordan, his legacy can stand on its own even without Scottie Pippen.
Without Scottie Pippen. But the same can't be said about Scottie Pippen, right?
Exactly. So, and the thing was, Scottie Pippen was a good player in his own right. He was having an MVP season the year Jordan went to play baseball. And after he left the Bulls, he had some okay years with the Rockets and the Blazers. But in fact, he went to the Eastern Conference Finals with the Blazers or the Western Conference Finals with the Blazers. So I think he's always felt like, hey, man, I was a pretty good player too. And he just doesn't get that, of course he's not going to be held in the same regard as Michael Jordan.
Right. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I have a theory, and I don't, I obviously don't know the guy, and I don't know this for sure, but here's my theory on that, man. It could be that Scottie Pippen has felt justified in the way he feels because maybe he thinks that Michael or the rest of the teammates never stuck up for him. Now, players don't get involved in other players' contract disputes. I have never in my lifetime of following sports ever heard of any player getting involved in another man's money. You get what I'm saying? However, I kind of feel like in some way Scottie Pippen feels the way he feels because maybe, just maybe, Michael or anybody else never, I don't know, they never gave credence to the way he's always felt. Even with the Tony Kukoc and the Bulls thing, Scottie Pippen's ego probably told him, hey, man, I'm the man on this team. I'm the guy on this team. I need to be shooting the shot. And maybe he felt like somebody should have backed him up on that. Even though Phil Jackson said, we just ran the play because it worked before. You know what I'm saying? And I just kind of feel like Scottie Pippen may feel like, guys, somebody back me up. And it just never happened.
Well,
I'm playing devil's advocate.
We just talked about the alpha dog thing.
Yeah.
So when that happened, Michael Jordan was gone. The alpha dog is gone. Scottie Pippen was that dog.
Right.
In that same situation, let's say Michael Jordan's on the team. You think Tony Kukoc takes the last shot?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
And I think Scottie was like, hell up, I'm the alpha dog now.
Right.
If Michael Jordan was here, there's no way. Even if Phil Jackson had drawn the player for Kukoc, Michael Jordan would have been like, BS, give me the ball. Give me the ball. If I want to pass it to Tony,
I'll make it happen.
Then I'll do it. Maybe Scottie Pippen should have just spoke up for himself. I think that was a recurring theme throughout the whole documentary. Sometimes you just gotta speak up for yourself,
right.
Without doing things like letting your teammates down.
Right. So, right.
Also, I think the Scottie Pippen contract narrative is overblown considering how criminally underpaid Michael Jordan was for his entire career. Right. The last two where he made $35 million a year, but he only made like $2 million a year.
There was a point in time where John Concac was getting more money than Michael Jordan. So there you have it. So yeah. Rodney, what you got, man?
Hold on, I want to speak about Horace Grant real quick.
Yeah, let's talk about Horace Grant.
Horace Grant. Let's say your best friend is a sports journalist.
Mm-hmm.
And that same sports journalist writes a tell-all book about the very team that you play for.
Right.
Who is his source?
What other sources are going to be?
Time out.
And my thing is this. Horace Grant is mad at Michael Jordan. But Michael Jordan wasn't the only person to call out Horace Grant in the documentary. B.J. Armstrong did. been winning team. They said, yeah, it was Horace, because who else could it have possibly been? I mean,
look. I heard through the grapevine. That Phil contributed to it too.
Absolutely,
that's what I heard.
I'm sure he did.
Probably so. But here's what doesn't.
And BJ said Horace wasn't the only one. So if you're gonna call out just Horace, you need to call out the other guys too.
Here's the difference in those other guys. Horace Grant had a history of saying things about Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan publicly in sports publications.
True.
Before that.
That is very true.
There's a magazine that's been circulating. I don't remember which magazine, one of those 80s, 90s sports magazines.
I know you're talking about.
On the cover, it's a Horace Grant tell-all.
Scottie and Horace on the cover.
So here he is. He's snitching to, he might not have snitched in that book, specific, just him, but he was snitching all the time before.
All the time, right.
Mainly because, and I think that he was a player that had a problem with Michael Jordan being the alpha dog, and Horace Grant knew that he himself was an important cog in that team, and he never really, to be fair, he didn't get the respect that he deserved. He didn't become an all-star till he went to go play for the Orlando Magic. He was a good defensive player.
And listen, because the whole time it was always Michael and Scottie. It was never Michael, Scottie, and Horace. It was never like that.
And I guess he was. I can't speak to how good of a teammate he was, because to be fair, I never read that book, Jordan Rules. But I do know that he had issue with Michael and Scottie not having to do two-a-day practices because they played on the 92 Olympic team. When they came back to the to training camp, Phil Jackson's making the team do two-a-days, except Michael and Scottie, and Horace Grant took some umbrage to that. And my thing is, so what? That's Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen.
Right.
They just did.
What do they have to prove? Like, how much practice do you? Come on, Horace. Like, stop it, man.
Plus, they just played in the Olympics. They just, they were essentially on a world tour during the entire summer.
Let me tell you something. Ultimately, that is being a bad teammate, if you ask me, because that is obviously for the betterment of the team. Look at how grueling and how tired Scottie and Michael were during the end of all of those seasons. And now you're going to sit here and tell me, well, they need to be two-a-days after playing basketball. Shut up, Horace. Just shut up.
That's my thing with Horace. If he's mad because he feel like Michael Jordan said that he was a snitch, all right, fair enough. But, dog, look at you don't have a sparkling history with the Chicago Bulls. I just didn't want to hear it.
Yeah, same.
Hey man, leave my clips alone. Let's move on. Leave my clips alone.
Ron Harper.
Let's move on.
Harper should have the biggest beef with the documentary. Where was he?
Well, there might have been another. Yeah. There might have been another reason they wanted to talk, but we ain't gonna talk about that. But.
Yeah, we're gonna leave that one
alone. All right, fellas. I'm terrible. All right, we're gonna switch gears a little bit, man. So there has been recent news that broke. I'm so sorry. That was a terrible joke, man. There's recent news that just broke that Charlotte has just passed the illustrious San Francisco, and we are now the 15th largest country in the United States, y'all. We also passed Indianapolis. City. Hey, whatever. However, the question needs to be asked, is Charlotte growing too fast? Fellas, what are your thoughts?
Yes.
Please expound, sir.
The infrastructure is not keeping up with the growth. And also we have a problem with affordable housing in our community that it just keeps getting put on the back burner.
I'm sorry, the record just skipped when you said that. Did you say a problem with affordable housing? And like the record is skipping when you say it. Okay, I got you.
Affordable housing in our community, and these historic affordable communities keep torn down for like $17,000, $18,000, $2,000 a month apartments, and where are these essential people that work in retail industries and service industries? Where are they going to live at that's close to their job?
Right.
So we have a lot of problems within our community, and honestly, I think the COVID-19 is going to help accelerate the move to Charlotte, because people are not going to want to be in places like New York, Chicago, or LA, where it's just
or San Francisco,
or San Francisco, where it's too congested and too crowded, and they have a little more space here in our metro area, but we're ultimately going to pay for that. We live in a red purple state who is not going to give us funding for transportation and things of that nature, and we're always put on the back burner for Raleigh, but we need the most resources, and I just have trouble seeing where these resources are actually going to come from.
Right.
Charlotte is growing too fast, but there's a but. One, every city grows too fast that grows. Your infrastructure will never be ahead of your growth, because no city government will anticipate massive growth and then build for it. They just won't. The money, because they'll say, what if we spend X amount? And
what if we overspend?
Right. Which brings me to my next point. The city of Charlotte had ample opportunity 20 plus years ago to prepare for this. For instance, 45. One of the things with 45 was that, it needs to be 4 to 6 lanes all the way around instead of 2 to 4.
Instead of the 2.
And it would have only cost, if I remember correctly, I could be wrong in the numbers, but something like $50 million extra it would have cost at the time to do that. The city, the state said they weren't going to pay it. The city said they didn't want to pay it, so they didn't pay it. And now look, 485 is one of the worst ways to get around Charlotte. Now, go figure, and the main reason it was built to help alleviate traffic issues. Also with affordable housing, part of the issue is that the people that are coming to Charlotte to help us grow are willing to pay these exorbitant rates to live. Consider, especially since we're talking about San Francisco, right now, if you work in Silicon Valley in San Francisco, let's say you work for Facebook or something like that, you make a 6-figure salary. Now, from what I understand, out there, 6 figures don't get you very far. You might be living out of your car, literally. But let's say you say, hold up, I've got this salary base of 100K plus. Why don't I just move to Charlotte, where 100K can carry you very far? You go from one big city to what is perceived to be a smaller city. You're going to want to live in South End. You're going to want to live in those places. So you move into these expensive apartments near downtown, the urban center, the epicenter. You have all that. So part of the issue is, the people that we bring in, and unfortunately it squeezes out a certain demographic in Charlotte, and the city I don't think they really even know how to alleviate that issue, because you just can't go to these developers and say, nope, you can't have that land, even though you're going to give us $250 million for it.
Right.
It's an very, very interesting situation. It's very difficult, and it sucks because we have to lean on our city leadership, and I don't think our city leadership is where it needs to be to resolve those issues. They're far too concerned about the RNC.
The majority.
Yeah.
We're going to get this money from the RNC, but what are we going to use it for?
What are we going to use it for? Where's the money going to actually go?
Yeah, affordable housing? No, apparently not. So
where'd the money from the DNC go? I'm sorry. Yeah, right.
No, yeah.
That's another show.
So yeah, Charlotte is growing too fast, but the train has already left the station on that. So
right. I want to speak to
I got a PSA.
Go ahead, Rodney.
Before you go proceed, I got a PSA. So people that want to move to Charlotte, can I interest you in a place called Greensboro in Greenville, South Carolina? They're growing as well. They're nice, smaller towns. $100,000 can stretch a little further down there. I'm done. Jamal, you can proceed.
Who moving? Nobody.
Ain't nobody moved no damn Greensboro. You couldn't pay me enough to move to Greensboro. Anyway, I wanted to speak to Rodney's point a little bit and kind of tie this in with COVID-19. I have a friend who lives in Southern California, and as we know, man, California, they're still pretty much on lockdown, and their lockdown laws are a little stricter than ours are right now. To I don't know, to put it plainly. To me, there's this there's this dynamic of restlessness that I'm thinking about when it comes to people migrating from certain larger areas to Charlotte, to not just Charlotte, but just south. Like Rodney alluded to, New York, California, Chicago, these bigger cities, who already have challenges of overpopulation, getting more bang for your buck, how long will your money go? They already have those challenges. But when we're speaking specifically of COVID-19, we all know how everyone is restless over COVID-19 and how it has affected all of us. I don't care who you are. Anybody has been affected by COVID-19. The restlessness of people is eventually that it's a bubble that is going to burst at some point. You got to understand, California might be on lockdown to the end of 21. We don't know that for sure, but it's not looking like they're going to get back to some norm anytime soon. You get what I'm saying? So eventually, 6 months from now, a year from now, people are going to be like, all right, man, I can't take this anymore. Charlotte looks affordable. Let's go. How y'all feel about that?
I mean, it's just the nature of the game, man. Like, I mean, you look at United States history. There've been great migrations all the time, man.
No doubt.
Charlotte.
I guess my question is, does this COVID-19 pandemic add an extra layer to that? That's specifically my question.
Yeah, of course. Like, I mean, if you look at the work world, what's going to come soon, like companies are going to start doing more work from home business soon, and office spaces are going to kind of be obsolete to some places too.
Right.
And people want the cheaper costs and stuff like that. And the like me and Kaja stated earlier in the early episode, masks are going to be the norm.
Right.
They're going to be the norm. Mask, gloves, sanitizer, and stuff like that. And if say I live in New York City and there's no cure for COVID-19, we don't know how long the antibodies last in your system. I have to take public transportation, aka the subway, every day to get to work. Thousands and millions of people touch these subway stairs every day.
Right.
Or I can move to the south, save some money, use my personal vehicle to get back and forth.
And be a lot safer.
It's a better option.
A lot more money.
It's safe.
No, absolutely. You look at the job markets, like Rodney said, telecommuting is going to be. My job has already said they are heavily considering everyone just work from home all the time now. If your position can facilitate that, it's cheaper for companies to do so. I do see a mass exodus from Silicon Valley to the South. Just from an economic standpoint. Like I said before, if you make $100K in San Francisco or LA or San Diego, you can come to Charlotte and be living pretty good on that same. You don't even have to switch jobs. You can just telecom.
Right.
You just gotta. You're just 3 hours ahead now. So I certainly see that Charlotte we're gonna get a boost here. And we just have to be ready. Our city leaders have to be ready for it. Crime rate is going to increase. Our murder rate last year was through the roof. The only reason it's not higher is
because of COVID-19.
So we have.
Yeah, people still getting killed during COVID-19.
Yeah.
So we just have to prepare for those things as Charlotteans. If we're all nice to each other, it could work, but.
Good luck with that.
You can't even go to North Lake without being shot at.
So, all right, fellas.
So So speaking of COVID-19, we're at 100,000 deaths shortly, pretty soon, if we're not already there. States are still opening up in different phases week by week. It's Memorial Day weekend. Guys, do we have a death wish? I really think I really think people don't care. And I have a theory. I have a theory right quick. So people were on edge when COVID was first announced and everybody was sheltering at home. But once they found out that, hey, lower socioeconomic communities are more susceptible, and African Americans, people kind of like, it'll be what it is. Like, right. People just don't care anymore, and I'm kind of perplexed by it, man.
Here's my theory on that, man. To a degree, I think that is true, but I think it's more so just flat out selfishness, and that's just to me that is the bottom line. This is a societal thing to me. You go out every day. You look at the amount of people who are not following guidelines, who are not wearing masks, who are going to these bars that are opening up, who are trying their best to live as normal as they possibly can, knowing that this is, we're not out the blue yet. You know what I mean? And I just think it's just selfishness, man. And this selfishness is starting at the top. We live in a society where it's money over everything. It's money over human life. It's money over common sense. It's money over logic. It's money over everything. So when you see this selfishness as an example at the top, it's going to trickle down to the society. And that crosses all color lines to me, man. It's everywhere. Like, people are just so restless and so selfish. It's the mindset of, well, it hasn't happened to me. It ain't happened to nobody close to me. I don't care. And that's just where we're at.
Yeah, people need to understand something. People watching, listening. Science is based on the ability to change itself based on new information. People forget that COVID-19 is a novel virus, hence the name COVID, coronavirus novel 19. Novel meaning they had never seen it. Yeah, they had never seen it before. It was new. So we have no idea how it killed or how it spread. So every time something changes, people take that as an aha, like, oh, okay, now they're saying you can't get it off of, they don't know what they're talking about. And then they just ignore that information. It's like,
before it's proven to be fact.
Right. Scientists just don't, there's a virus, so here's all of the things that it does or doesn't do. It doesn't work that way. They can only make assumptions based on what we know about virology. And then sometimes some of those assumptions are true. And then sometimes through testing and research, we find out that they're not true. And then we have to change the way we operate based on that information.
Absolutely.
But people don't want to see that. They have a mistrust, which is fair, a mistrust of information, given the times that we're in. But use common sense and be cautious. I'm okay with being cautious because we don't know everything about this virus.
Right.
The idea that,
if not anything else, the unknown should make you extra cautious.
Absolutely. So it's like, does anyone really think that there's like a global Illuminati conspiracy to make everyone wear masks so that restaurants can shut down? I don't get it.
I don't understand. But it just goes back to just selfishness, man. Look, man, when you are suffering and suffering for lack of a better term, but you just, I don't know, man. It's just like logic changes when you suffer. Logic goes out the window. What did our man Brandon Richards say a long time ago on the show, man? Emotion doesn't do logic well. And you got people who just COVID-19 situation is a very emotional thing. It doesn't do logic well. And we're seeing it firsthand, man. Fellas, I hate to cut this short, but we are right at an hour. Rodney, you got something quick?
So quickly, the NBA is starting in July. Good idea, bad idea?
I don't know. That's my answer.
The way they're going to start, I like the playing at a single location, Disney World. I'm not sure if I like the play-in. I mean, that's a great idea. And for some teams like the Hornets. That's great. But if you're like a 7th, 8th seed right now,
right. I don't know if I'll take that.
I would vote against that because imagine being a 7th seed and then you get punted by Devontae Graham and Miles Bridges for your playoff spot in Disney World.
That'll be awesome.
Yeah, that would be great. I would love that. Damn the draft pick. I don't even care about the draft pick. I would love to see that.
I'll say something real quickly on that, man. I trust Adam Silver to do the right thing. That's my statement on it. But quickly, y'all, I want to move to shoutouts. I have 2 shoutouts, man. Unfortunately, they are sad ones today. Rest in peace, Jerry Sloan, man. Not like I've ever been some Utah Jazz fan, but I have always had the highest respect for Jerry Sloan, man. He was a guy that, forget the fanfare and the cameras and the glitz and glamour of the NBA. He wasn't about that, man. He was a hard hat kind of coach who was a player's coach, who was the longest tenured coach of the NBA for years and years and years. Never thought he got the respect he deserved, man. So rest in peace, Jerry Sloan. Also, rest in peace, and God, the name is Eddie Sutton, who was a longtime coach of the Oklahoma Sooners, great college coach, man. So basketball lost 2 of the coaching greats, man. So rest in peace to both of those gentlemen.
Pop quiz for my shout out. Do you guys know who the primary founding donor was of the Smithsonian African American Museum in Washington, D.C.?
Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
Who is also giving all of his proceeds, all of the money that he made from The Last Dance, to charity for families affected by COVID-19. He's a terrible person.
Oh, what? This doesn't make sense, man. What?
Yeah,
huh?
You can
I thought
he donated the prison proceeds. He donated the prison proceeds to go to the African American Museum.
No.
They should send their money back.
No, but how come he just can't take all that money and go tell LeBron to come play for us? How could what? I'm confused, man.
Yeah. What he should have done is pay Kevin Durant to come to Charlotte instead of
out of his pocket instead of
worst owner ever.
Right, Rodney, what you got? Rodney, what you got?
I'm gonna give a shout out to Mitch Kupchak. It's his birthday today.
Happy birthday, Mitch Kupchak.
Also give a shout out to just all the Charlotte creatives and media members and podcast people still chugging along through this pandemic. We support you, well, most of you. Hey, man, just keep chugging along, man.
No doubt. I forgot
petty right there.
Hey, man, it's okay, man. Hey, we invented petty on this show. Real quick shout out. I forgot. Happy 10th anniversary to Dup and SWAT. Other than that, man, shout out to the fans that keep rocking with us, man. We don't know when or if or any of that, but hopefully, man, we'll be back to normal at some point in time. We can't wait, whenever that is, and we'll see you then, man. But until then, man, take care of each other, man. Peace out, y'all.
Final thing, try Hip Hop Smoothies. They recently opened off of my Holly Underhill Road. They're a black-owned business. Great smoothies, Hip Hop Smoothies. Peace out.
Peace, y'all.